Hello everyone, welcome to Let's Talk About It. Thank you very much for your participation, whether you are here with us now or watching it later. Today we'll be talking about internationalization of the neuroscience Conscientiology with an exclusive participation of the attendees of the 7th Leadership Forum being held today, an event organized by Literary Apex Isaac, focused on exchange ideas for group evolutionary initiatives in Europe. They are at this very moment sharing screen tuned on Let's Talk. Thank you guys for your participation, and please send your questions anytime, okay? We begin always with the principle of disbelief. This first and foremost, it's important to mention the principle of disbelief. Don't believe in anything, not even in what we say here in our program, right? Experiment, have your own experiences. To talk about internationalization of Conscientiology, let me introduce you our team today. We've got a very special team today with our friends in Europe. João Cunha from ACP Portugal, General Coordinator of ACP Portugal. Welcome, João.
Hi, Mario. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually Deputy Coordinator of ACP Portugal, volunteer, of course, teacher. It's a pleasure to be here and to answer to all of your questions.
Thank you, John, for coming. Evelyn Malzani from ACP, a volunteer in Sweden.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet everyone virtually. So I'm in Sweden. I was born here in Stockholm by Italian parents. I've lived in quite many countries. I'm a global citizen. In my profession, I work as a teacher and a trainer in the areas of communication and leadership. And I've been in Conscientiology for a little over 16 years and volunteer mainly for ACP English at the moment.
Great, Evelyn. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Adina Oprea from Isaac, volunteering in Romania. Welcome,
Hello.
Adina.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. So my name is Adina Oprea. I am Romanian. I live in Romania and I'm a volunteer of Isaac since 2020.
Very good. Thank you, Adina, for coming. Our debate is based on conscientiology, right? Conscientiology is a neuroscience that studies the consciousness as a whole. Consciousness is me, is you, is each one of the human beings, right? Here in the extraphysical reality. Our studies of the conscientiology as a whole is based on the paradigm, its consciential paradigm, which has 7 pillars, right? Bioenergies, multidimensionality, pluriexistentiality, self-research, cosmoethics, universalism, and holosoma. Conscientiology has more than 20 conscientiocentric institutions, each of them specialized in one specific topic of research. And RCP is specialized in parapsychism. RCP is a conscientiocentric institution specialized in the study, the research and development of the parapsychism, an indispensable attribute for consciential evolution. ACP in English project is a project to aims to promote the ideas of conscientiology and the study of the parapsychism worldwide. Very well. So let's get started with our today's topics, the internationalization of conscientiology. If you got any questions to ask, please feel free to use our comment section and we'll be answer them as soon as possible. We have some participations of Jacqueline Cullen. Oh, very nice, Jacqueline. Patricia Barbosa. Hello, Patricia. Flavia Ullman as well. Hello, Flavia. So be comfortable to drop your questions in our comment section. And I'd like to begin our conversation today by tackling something that, for me, is the first barrier to cross when we are out to get our messages across in a foreign country, which is the cultural barrier. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, what cultural challenges, right, if you have any, conscientiology faces at the moment or would face to get settled in your country?
Well, I can share my experience. Although we have the same language, Brazil and Portugal, there are several differences, cultural differences. I know that in some European countries, namely the Northern European countries, for instance, the time of communication, let's say the banners we create, we need to think the structure and the image. Otherwise, people might not give them credibility, So that's why it's so important when you do a movement of internationalization to have someone local, to know the culture, what kind of message, what kind of image we can present first. I think that's the most important. Secondly, when you are trying to establish activities, practical activities, it's essential to choose very well the location where you do the courses. So it's actually several aspects that needs to be considered, I would say.
Very good.
If I could build on what Joel said, if we look at the Nordic countries, now I live in Sweden, but Norway, Denmark, Finland, and Sweden, the paranormal belief goes quite a long way back in history. So I think in terms of being open, they are quite open to anything paranormal. I think the response is bigger in terms of energies. So I agree there with what Joel was saying. I think practical courses on site would be one really good way of attracting people. And I think also, of course, there are cultural differences in terms of how people want to receive the information, how we communicate with them. And I think, at least here in Sweden, it's not so much a question of publications, it's more a question of online channels, I would say.
I think that to identify the challenges, we need to analyze all the cultural, psychological, genetical, mesological, and paragenetical elements. And this is a very difficult process. For instance, in case of Romania, Romanian psychologists and anthropologists haven't yet succeeded to make an exhaustive, comprehensive list of the traits of the Romanians. But overall, they are people of the antagonism. However, in my opinion, the most difficult barrier that conscientiology needs to break is the religion, because Romania is in the top 10 of the most religious countries in the world. Romania is the only European country. 89% of population claiming to be religious. Another element is a certain type of nationalism. we still need to learn how to handle with the nationalism as well as with the patriotism, and to understand that they are not strong traits and they are far from universalism. And another aspect is a relative new one, in my opinion, as a consequence of the new spiritual currents that have entered the country in the last 30 years, is the instability of those people who are butterfly seekers and that cannot decide to one line or another, and worse, they mix the different currents.
Okay, so basically this is what we will face. But then let's just imagine what would make Europeans take interest in conscientiology, in your opinion? Because we talked about the religion, right? But also, if you are talking about science, which is we are talking about science, right? How would you suggest us to go as presenting more debates or inviting people for courses, how to get the European or how to take conscientiology to European? What would you suggest that we do?
I think promoting debates would be interesting. I can give my personal example. For me, the principle of disbelief, it worked like a retrocognition tip, you know. When I saw that expression, it was so familiar to me that I knew it from that moment that it was something special and I need to go deeper on that. So I think if we promote debates, if we do more, if we release more information in terms of social media, in Portugal, we are working now on the creation of a new Portuguese website translated to English. So I think it will be a tremendous mean of communication and to broadcast the ideas of this new science that is conscientiology. I think the tools are there. Maybe we need to use them wisely or in a different way. I don't know. It's open for discussion. But debates, local debates, I think they are a tremendous way to release information and to capture new people.
I think in terms, absolutely, debates, live events are by far, I would say, the best ways to capture at least the Nordic people or the Swedes, their interest. In terms of audience analysis and social media, that's a bigger chunk of work that needs to be done, because how do we reach the people? I mean, we can publish everything we want in social media channels, but how do we add people as followers? How do we get more interest as follower to our channels? Because at the moment it is the majority is people already interested or already has a knowledge about conscientiology. So that there is a big chunk of work that needs to be done in terms of audience analysis, and maybe, which is a challenge, to have a budget to buy spaces on social media. I think online is one of the ways to go, but to build that up with having live events here, courses where they can get the theoretical knowledge, but also get the practical knowledge with exercises. Above all this, the way I think, one thing that is important is the language we use. Now, English as a language is not a problem in Sweden, nor is it a problem in the other Nordic countries. But I think it's important that we speak in a simple language and think about the terminology that we use. Because if we use terminology that is 90 or 100% unfamiliar to people, it will shut them off or it will turn them away.
I think that in order to disseminate better conscientiology in Europe, throughout Europe, it is very important to identify the common traits of the people living in Europe beyond their national traits, and to find a common language to offer them using this common language and common means. I think that nowadays, when people live in a period full of changes, the main attribute that should be used is the scientific character of the conscientiology. Europe is now a community beyond the difficulties of integration inherent because of the history, a history that was full of balances. Therefore, another element specific to conscientiology that we should use is the pacifism and universalism. We can use this concept to aim the desire people for peace. And I think that this conscientiological idea, this concept, can coagulate, trigger the people's desire to approach a new paradigm, the conscientiological paradigm, mainly in this period of military conflict that is so close to Romanian border and to European border, and that I hope that we will have the wisdom to overcome as soon as possible.
Very good. We have one comment coming up, which is from Regina T. I think it's important to understand that there is not something like the European. Europe is a space with a lot of diversity. Yes, totally. I totally agree. Yeah, there's different countries with different cultures, and each culture with a very specific kind of behavior and things like that. We have to act differently. But you said something very interesting, Adina, concerning the universalism, and I also would include in this term, right, the way we approach, the way we address people in Europe, especially when we have different nationalities in the classroom. At the CP, we have had this experience because we are going to start the 3rd edition of our entry course, but we also have our weekly activity, which has an average of 8 to 10 people from different countries, right? So, and there we have different ideas coming up, even though we are settled in the conscientiological paradigm, we are in an open discussion. So we have to be flexible to even present the neologisms of conscientiology as well. So we have to take care of the science, keep our feet in our neologism, of course, but also being flexible and having this openness to receive people from all walks of life, from all kinds of philosophies. And we have to have this dialogue in the beginning, right? And so we will present something different from different perspective, which is the perspective of the conscientiology. Yes, now I would like to talk about something that's for me very important. Is the definition about the internationalization and the expansion, right? One thing is internationalization. It's what we are doing now. We are talking in English because it's a kind of lingua franca, right, for everyone. And this is what we're doing, right? We are publishing books in English and Spanish and so on. But this is our role. This is our part in this process. But there is another one, which is when the conscientiology arrives in these countries, right? So I'd like João Cunha to talk about it because João is a perfect example, right, of a native from Portugal opening an institution, a conscientiocentric institution in Portugal, which is CP. And that's very, very nice to hear João talking about it, right? Because this is what we want to have in Sweden, in Romania, in Germany, in France, wherever. João, could you tell us a bit of your experience in Portugal, please?
Sure. Forgive me, but I have a few notes because otherwise I would lose myself. It's quite rich. It's quite rich, the background. So it starts in 1994 with the Professor Mário Oliveira and then Professor António Pitaguari. They were here for lectures and debates. Again, you promote the debate, and we know that most of these methods passes sometimes much better or is more effective if it goes from person to person. If I know someone that I can identify with these new ideas that I'm getting now, fresh, brand new, I will bring my friends to it. And this was pretty much what happened in Portugal. In November, same year, 94, Professor Val Vieira was here for exactly the same lectures and debates for more than 200 people. And he released here in Lisbon the book, 700 Experiments, which is, from my point of view, a milestone here in Portugal. At that time, the designation was International Institute of Projeciology. So it was more term, it was before the second designation in 95. It becomes the International Institute of Projeciology and Conscientiology. The first volunteer in Portugal was Alexandre Fernandes. The first teacher, they have been trained in 95, between 95 to 96. And the first teacher was Lucília Campos. She is still teacher of ACP Portugal. In 2000, so in 5 years, there was a ECP3 with more than 100 students, all right? In 2001, a huge event, Expo Conscientiology, with 600 people, showing several projects planned to Portugal, including a new campus that was founded a few years later, courses, lectures, with the participation of Professor Valdo Vieira. They had a television report and an interview with Professor Val Vieira, which was broadcast on the TV. In 2000, they had 3 classrooms working simultaneously with full of students. It was incredible. In 2003, they had 100 volunteers. It was the peak. They had activities in Lisbon, Porto, Leiria, Coimbra, Bragança, London, Barcelona, and Madrid. So you can imagine the dimension of the work that was done at the time. In 2003, it was created one other institution, and for a period of time, there were 2 institutions in Lisbon. And here, some people consider that this was the second phase. So it was the first phase of internationalization and then expansion until 2003, where ACP started in Portugal, ACP Portugal. And some people consider that that was the third phase of Conscientiology in Portugal. It has been operating as an autonomous unit. We had the peak of activities in 2009. It was a full cruising speed before the pandemic situation. And in that year, it was the organization of the celebration of the 25 years of Conscientiology in Portugal. We visit 11 cities for 11 days with more than 100 people. There was a symposium, courses, debates with more than 100 people, lectures with more than 150 people. In Tomar, which is in Portugal considered the city of the Templars, we had ECP1 and a parapsychic dynamic with around 70 people. We have 16 teachers in Portugal. 15 of them are Portuguese. We have Karina now from Brazil. She is volunteering in ACP Portugal right now. We have a team that can train teachers even outside Portugal in collaboration and cooperation with other institutions. The EEPC was a partner to establish entry courses to the Conscientiology, the course Evolution of Conscientiologiness, Projection of Consciousness and Energy. We have partnerships with the United States, Switzerland, France, United Arab. The Portuguese teachers went to Brazil, traveled to Brazil, Middle East, and United States. In 2019, again, on that year, we had 37 courses, all presential, with an average of participation of 37 persons per course. We are now resuming our activities with debates, practical activities, courses until the end of the year. We are based in Coimbra. In Lisbon and Porto, we rent hotel meeting rooms, so we can keep the costs under control. And it's rather flexible. We can choose the meeting room according to the type of course or the location. If any one of you in Europe wants to be added to our mailing list, please send an email to acipportugal@gmail.com. So you can receive all the news and the new trainings and courses we are having. Next year, April and May, Professor Mario Oliveira and Diana Lopes, they will be here in April and May again. And there will be more news to come in November next year as well. So the pandemic situation will allow us, and also the situation in Europe. Let's see how it develops. So this is a bit the background, and I think we can identify the movement of internationalization and then the expansion. Obviously, there are ups and downs, but that's part of the institutions, as we know.
That has been amazing, Joel. And you also have organized events in Ilha da Madeira, Madeira Island, right? And also in Switzerland,
right,
with 40 maneuvers and so on. That's been amazing, your work you've done in Portugal. Really great. I have a comment from NK here, which is, I was in Germany. I noticed that many people are very skeptical about the multidimensionality. So there is a huge barrier to expand Conscientiology. What your opinion is about it? I'd like to ask Evelyn, right? What she thinks about this comment from NK.
Well, thank you, Annie, for that comment. I think it's not a super easy question to answer, because traditionally Swedes have been very open to other realities. I mean, you have the Nordic mythology, you have the belief in gnomes and goblins, of mystical creatures living in the deep, dark Nordic forest was a normality, right? And then we have Emanuel Swedenborg, who is a contemporary of Carl von Linné. Now, Carl von Linné was made super famous, the botanist, whereas Emanuel Swedenborg was sort of hidden in Swedish history. He has come more to the surface now. So I think the openness to multidimensionality it's shifting, particularly with the younger generation. I think this is also, if I'm not mistaken, a global movement, because if you think back to, let's say, 10 years ago, if you said you were in yoga, you were basically a hippie. Now yoga is something that's commonplace. The same thing with meditation 10 years ago. You were a freak. Now meditation is normalized. Energies is becoming much more normalized. So I think the shift is going in the right direction. And I do believe that the openness is definitely increasing.
Great. If Regina Chud is with us now, maybe she could have an answer about Germany as well. I saw Regina T, so I believe that Regina Chud, if I'm not wrong. But anyway, That would be good to have her answer his questions as well. But this is a very good question, right? Because I mean, we are talking about people from your country. So how much of of this kind of situation can you notice in Romania as well, Adina?
Oh, well, this distrust is also very present in Romania, connected, very much connected with a traditional way of living and thinking of Romanians. But in the same times, I think that we are also we face also here an openness, and being open to the new ideas is a very strong trait of the Romanian people. They have a native intelligence, and they uh, permanently want to know more, to experience themselves. And I think that this is a very important element that we should be used in the dissemination of conscientiology in Romania. Um, what else I'd like to add, if I'm allowed, uh, before speaking about what we are doing here in Romania, I'd like to say that I was very fond from the very beginning of this new approach that you have given to the idea of internationalization and the conceptual delimitation between internationalization and expansion. And I think that the intermissivists living today abroad who are involved in conscientiology dissemination, they are those who know the past, the actual situation in their countries, in the countries they live in this life, and they know better the people's strong traits and weak traits, and they are available, they are able to spread the ideas of conscientiology, and not necessarily in a Brazilian style, if you don't mind. They should become epicenters who have the lucidity to develop the conscientiological paradigm. For instance, I'm writing a verbet about Romanian mesology, and it is a very good opportunity for me to study more deeply the Romanian people in order to find the best way not only to disseminate conscientiology, but also to amplify it, to bring new concepts, new approaches, new understandings, because, well, conscientiology is a living science, and it is in our power to develop it.
Mario, sorry, can
Go
I
ahead.
just add
Sure.
here something that I think we should consider as well? Well, we are also working with the extra physical atmosphere of the country. Well, maybe the extra physical environment in Germany, it's not the same in Portugal for sure. It's totally different. We all know the history, and obviously that's it's a barrier. It's the karma of the country as well that also counts a bit, I would say. Every time if we go to a new location to give a course, a practical course, there are some difficulties. There are some local barriers that we need to face, and the team needs to overcome. In a country like Germany, it's obvious that sooner or later, like Evelyn mentioned, there is a turning point for everything. It's obvious. But I'm pretty sure that the work needed to be carried there, it's much more, it might be more difficult than in other countries.
Yeah, it's part of the process, right? Yeah, very well said, João. We have some comments coming up from Liliana. Liliana, thank you, Liliana, for your participation. I was one of the first non-Brazilian instructors of Conscientiology from 1998 and a co-founder of the institution that developed a great deal that work. And she continues here, just like being a co-founder of the campus of Conscientiology in Portugal. And she continued with the third comment. Helped to organize the ECP3 John talked about. João.
It's incredible because, from my point of view, that one was another milestone in Portugal. I mean, it's a deep training, a deep course that you are involved for 3 days in the specific environment, and it's unbelievable the kind of events that you can have, the revelations you can achieve. It's unbelievable.
Very nice. And we have more comments here. I said that Regina, possibly Regina Chu, Regina T, she said, I think it's not necessary a disadvantage from my point of view that people are critical regarding multidimensionality because they are not looking too much for mystical chi-chi. Well, let's go for the next one. She continues here. This one, all right. So, okay, Germans might have less problems regarding the scientific mindset we are looking for in conscientiology. Regina is German, and this comment is coming from German native. Very good. Thank you very much, Regina, for your comments to enrich our talk today. We have one more comment before we continue with our conversation. Let me just show this one. It's from Claudio Lima. Claudio, thank you for your participation. Parabéns pelo trabalho. Congrats for your work. How can we create a culture of evolutionary teams and friendship through research in conscientiology?
Well,
there are regarding the partnerships, right?
There are a few evolutionary teams already in place, namely in Brazil. I would say that depends what Claudio is looking for, no? But if the intention is to do it in Europe or in Portugal, just contact us and we can evaluate and talk about it.
That's right. And as we are talking about this question from Claudio, we've been working together, right? Especially in terms of publications, we have a group of people translating books at the moment, right? There is a project of the dictionary, Adina. Could you, this is the first moment, this is a good moment, Adina, for us to talk about the publications, because publications has crucial importance for us to spread out conscientiology worldwide. So could you just go through it, please?
Oh, yes, of course. So our main preoccupation, our main goal here in Romania is to translate conscientiological books, and we started, in fact, our activity here translating books. We have already translated Penta Manual, Praxis Manual, Zephyrus, that can be seen behind me. They are very precious. For us, we have many others in progress, like Projection of Consciousness, Our Evolution, Intermissive Course, and many other impending. We are at the final revision stage with a glossary of essential terms of conscientiology, and we are involved in the bigger project, the thesaurus of 3,000 terms of conscientiology, and we are very happy and very grateful that Romanian is among the languages in the thesaurus. And I think that, in my opinion, the main way to open the conscientiology to European countries, but generally to open it internationally, is to translate as many books as possible in as many languages as possible. And we don't need to think, well, there are only 20 million people speaking of Romanian, or I don't know. It doesn't matter, because we don't translate only for us now. We translate also for the next intermissivists, next consciousnesses that will decide that in our countries, in the countries that we are living now. So our work is not only, it doesn't reflect only a strict period of time or of strict territory. We have to think to the other, and we need to prepare our Holothocene, our country Holothocene, and help them in their future existential programs, and ours, of course, as well. So yes, I totally agree that translating, that having debates, courses in different language is essentially, and it is a must. We have to concentrate on this aspect.
That's very important, because if I'm not wrong, we've been translated. We have translated almost 49 publications, 24 in English, from not mentioned Romanian and Spanish publications, right? So we are really good at this. We have all the comments coming up from Regina, right? She continues, this belief principle could be crucial here in Germany, right? She's referring to Germany, and she continues here. The comfort plays an important role. Very nice. We have a comment from Jacqueline Cohen. Let me just place it here. Also, this debate about Romanian mythology will help others to understand more about how to help intermissivists in Romania. Then, Adina?
I hope, yeah. Yes, of course. I think that, well, initially I thought that I know many things about my people, and it will be easy to write a verb, but I was totally wrong. And I really feel that I have to dig deeper, more deeply inside. And well, I hope that it would be a good opportunity, not only for me to write a verb about Romanian mythology, but for other people living in other countries, living about their mythology. It's a very good way to research a culture and a certain society, in my opinion.
You're muted, Mario. You're muted.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Virginia Reese says, congrats. Today we have a very good synchronicity, because we are discussing internationalization in two forums. One from Literary in partnership with Isaac and Apex, and this one. This is true. That was very interesting synchronicity. But coming up, the next is a question. What are the benefits to be polyglot in conscientiology? Evelyn.
Oh yeah, that's a very interesting question. Thank you, Virginia. I think if I first look at myself, I'm a polyglot. I've lived in several countries. I've traveled extensively. And what I think the benefits I think it can bring is that you understand people on a deeper level and you can catch the nuances of what's being said, but also what is not being said, body language. And of course, we have many other aspects in which we take in a person. But I think you get a 360-degree understanding of people, culture, traditions, preferences, and it's a lot easier to connect to more people. So I think polyglottism is it can only be a benefit to conscientiology and to the expansion of conscientiology, and you don't have to be a speaker of 6 languages. I think it's enough with one, and there is a lot of work being done in both translations and publications that we have talked about. So I think we're on a good path.
John, what's your opinion about it?
Well, language, it's the main communication way. I mean, when you are abroad, even visiting a country, pleasure, let's say, traveling, it's a huge barrier if you don't talk local language or if locals are not open to speak a foreign language. So it makes the bridge. And as Evelyn said, and I fully agree, if you know the local language, you can go deeper in that connection. It's obvious. I mean, there is English, which is universal language, and most of the people do have a high level of use of English, but still, their own language, it's their language, and that I think makes a difference for sure.
We've had experience of in our entry courses, right, where we have people from different countries, right? And the first one we had one from Romania, the other from Mexico, and from France as well. And we also talked to, especially in psychic encounters, we have different nationalities participating, and we use English, of course, because it's impossible to talk to 6 different languages, addressing people in their own native languages. So English has been helping us a lot in this communication, right? We have comments from Eliane Voslal. Thank you, Eliane, for your participation. Currently, there's also a team producing 2 multilingual thesaurus of Conscientiology, the term pot in Portuguese and the Elfec in English, each one with 3,000 terms. This is an amazing work indeed, right? That is possibly coming up to be released next year. And this is what she says next. Term reports will be launched in 2023. And after that, Elfect. Yes, that's right. Congratulations, Eliane, and the whole team. Adina and Evelyn also is working in this project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good one. We are expecting this project to happen. And people, one thing that I said is that let me just find it. Is the responsibility of the conscientiocentric institutions in promoting their specialty or courses, initiatives, debates, and so on. And we talked about publishing books, right? But also, it's a very good question when we are beginning a work, like beginning to be present in Europe and so on, to have some strategies in terms of media, because the importance of get well known or be famous, right? We want to show our faces. So apart from the publications, what other suggestions should one have, or should a CI, like a conscientiocentric institution, have to spread out their word in Europe? So what do you suggest?
If I may start, I think I mentioned it before. What I think is important is to start having a presence on social media channels. But as you mentioned as well, Mario, we need a strategy for it. because it's a huge buzz out there, right? So there's a lot of noise being made. So how do we break through that noise, and how do we reach people that are searching for what it is we have to share? So I think there might be a question of, well, there's the work that needs to be done in terms of audience analysis. I do believe that buying some slots, for example, in some certain social media channels might be a need at some point. I know where the funds are not maybe that big, and so I don't know if that is feasible at all. And I do think that, as I mentioned as well, initially we need to use a language that everyone understands.
I think social media can actually bring some people, but it's important to have local debates. I mean, it will give the structure for the people to give credibility to what they are seeing on the media. And then there is an important dimension, which is the message, like I said previously, person to person, the idea. So I think it's a bit of complementation. Obviously, there is a lot to be done. It needs to grow, but it needs to grow with a certain structure, you know, otherwise it might not go in the correct way, let's say. And the most important asset that we could lose was credibility as institutions and as a new science.
I think that the strategies should differ according to the target group, right? Because we need to concentrate on the traits of the small group we are working with. The goal is to aim the entire society as a whole. But in my opinion, the best is to identify the characteristics of the different groups that form the society. For instance, the people have different education, paradigmatic levels, have different age. They have technical minds or artistic minds. Therefore, we need to adapt our strategies according to this aspect.
That's very good. And so the consensus-centric institution must be aware of the way they are communicating and making these strategies through digital market, for example. This is what we are doing at the SIP, and it's been, in the beginning, but I think that that's the way. We have another comment coming up from Virginia Ruiz. I think understanding the culture can be a key to internationalize conscientiology, because the benefits is that you learn to respect more the other culture. Can you comment about this idea?
Yeah, totally agree. There is the fastest way you can turn someone off is if you show that you have not understood the way they want to be communicated to. So audience adaptation is key in terms of communication. We know that. And in terms of understanding the culture, yes, I think it's going to be extremely difficult if we think that we're going to take whatever is done in Brazil, the way it's done in Brazil, and implement it in Sweden. I think it's a fool's errand. I don't think that's going to work. So we need to pay attention to the sensitivities of the Swedish culture or the sensitivities of the Finnish culture. So a small adaptation needs to be made. Otherwise, I think it will be extremely challenging.
That's very interesting what you said, because I was talking the other day with Isabelle Ulsea, which is a volunteer at the CP, and she lives in Helsinki, Finland, right? And she said to me that sometimes the Finnish people don't ask questions during the debates, during the class. They are not, cut out to do it. They respect the class, and they ask questions after the class. So it's a kind of behavior that's different from Brazilians, because Brazilians are always raising hands and say, I have got a question. So it's different in Finland, for example. So this is a small detail, but it tells a bit of what you're saying, right, Evelyn, is we have to get adapted to the way the students are in the class. The behavior of the students in the classroom, it's exactly this, it comes from the small detail in dealing with a foreigner, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
no, sorry, Evelyn. Please.
No, I was just going to comment that I've been teaching in Sweden and I've been teaching in Italy, and it's completely different. The approach you need to have as a trainer. Sorry, go ahead, Joao.
No, my comment was, well, exactly the same. I mean, one of the secrets that one of the small differences that make ACP successful in Portugal, from my point of view, was the fact that it was autonomous. So it was free to adapt to the local culture, to the local mentality, let's say. And it's a key role.
So I'd like to ask you, I have ACP Portugal as a for me, a very good example of an institution created in a foreign country that really succeeded. So, but if we look at ACP Portugal today, okay, we might not have the right idea of how difficult it was in the beginning for you to settle the Conscientiology in it. Because could you tell us exactly what we had to come through at that time, the most difficult things, because I think it would be very good for people to know that.
It was coming from starting from scratch. I mean, the extra physical atmosphere was sometimes difficult, and I'm talking about Lisbon. And then when the work developed, differences can be really spotted. It was easy at the start. It was required to big amounts of energy to clean the hotel meeting rooms, the spaces, and then with time things turn out differently. But then again, when the work was supposed to be done in other cities, the difficulty was exactly the same. You need to go back to the start, to the scratch, so cleaning, working, and then as the work is implemented and progresses, then it becomes easier. But there is a phase of installation. You need to create the structure. There is the extra physical structure that also needs to be created. Obviously, there is a lot of extra physical assistance, but there are some barriers to win.
Very good. I hope that in the near future we'll have all the consensus institutions based in Europe, but opened by native. I think it's very, very important. Not Brazilians, native people, teaching Conscientiology, doing this stuff, because this is what I really call the expansion of Conscientiology. We have some comments. We are approaching to the end, 1 minute to go, but we still have some comments I'd like to show. This is a comment from NK. And we have also the very recently dictionary from OIC with terms in 3 languages. Very well remembered. Yes, reminded, actually. Let's go for Liliana Alexandre with one more comment. Isaac also has among the various the bridge projects. That's true, Liliana. Congrats for this initiative. It's an amazing activity. One called the British writers. The next step is writing Conscientiology in other languages too, not just translating. Great comment. Comenex, here we go. With Conscientiology is all about self-research and writing. After all, we live in graphophobic societies. That's true. And we go with more. Online events, video recorded, are also very relevant. Well said. It involves law. I agree, Evelyn Malzani. We really need more strategies to be seen in the web. And we have this comment from Lidiana, just adding, Elfect will have the neologisms in 7 languages. Wow, that's great. And here we go with Virginia. Thanks. Thanks, Evelyn Zhuang, for the answers. People, we are approaching to the end, but before finishing our meeting today, I'd like to tell you that we have this activity, right, which is the psychic encounters that we have, a weekly activity, psychic encounters, happening every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. We read the book Projections of the Consciousness, right, by Professor Valdo Vieira, and we discuss with the students the experience they had while reading, but not only this, their own experiences, their parapsychic experiences. They ask questions, we can clarify topics, but also we share ideas and exchange knowledge every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. Psychic encounters, right? Okay, and we are starting tomorrow one more edition of our entry course, Basis of the Parapsychic Development, right? This is the entry course by ACIPI. We'll be talking about several topics about bioenergies, holosoma, paraperceptuology, lucid projections, introduction to conscientiology, consciential paradigm, thought scenes, and other topics that will expand your knowledge on parapsychism. It starts tomorrow, September 25, always on Sundays from 9 to 11 a.m. Price 200, and you can register at the ACIPI website, acipi.org/Losha. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye. I must thank you truly the participation of the three of you. This is what I really wanted, to talk about internationalization with three people from Europe or three foreigners, because I wanted to hear the ideas from native of other countries, not Brazil. Thank you very much, John. Your final considerations for this rep.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, everyone.
Evelyn?
Thank you so much.
Adina?
Thank you very much. And last idea is that we here in Romania, we try by all means to stay connected to Conscientiology.
Very good, Adina. Thank you very much for your participation. Next, in October, the next Let's Talk will be talk about inner peacefulness on October 29th, right? So I see you then. Thank you very much for your participation, people. Bye-bye. Cheers. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.